Vitold Peeletskee was born on May 13, 1901, in Olonets, a small town in the Russian Empire. His family were patriotic Poles living far from their homeland due to forced resettlement by the Russian Tsarist regime. Even from an early age, Vitold was taught the values of duty, faith, and sacrifice, lessons that would shape his actions in ways no one could have imagined. After Poland regained independence in 1918, he joined the military and fought in the Polish-Soviet War, displaying courage and leadership that hinted at what was to come. In the years that followed, Pilecki lived what many would consider a normal life. He became a landowner, a painter, a writer, a father, and a husband. But with the rise of Hitler and Stalin, and the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in 1939, Poland once again became a battlefield. Germany invaded from the west, and the Soviet Union from the east. Poland was crushed, and its government went into exile. Amidst the chaos, resistance movements sprouted from the rubble, determined to preserve Polish sovereignty and spirit. Witold Pilecki was among the first to take part. He co-founded one of the early resistance groups and later became an integral part of the Home Army, the main underground resistance organization in occupied Poland. While many were focused on guerrilla actions, sabotage, and intelligence gathering, Pilecki had something more dangerous in mind. In 1940, news of a mysterious new German camp being built in a place called Auschwitz, began to circulate. At the time, it was believed to be a large prison for political opponents. The Polish resistance needed to know what was going on inside. What Pilecki proposed was beyond imagination. He volunteered to deliberately get himself arrested and deported to Auschwitz so he could gather intelligence from inside the camp. His friends and fellow officers thought he was insane. At this point, no one knew the full extent of what Auschwitz would become. But Pilecki felt that someone needed to go in and report back. And so, in September 1940, he allowed himself to be caught in a German street raid in Warsaw and was arrested under a false name, Tomasz Serafiński. He was sent to Auschwitz with the second transport of Polish political prisoners. From the moment he arrived, he realized the task would be more difficult and dangerous than he had ever imagined. The conditions were brutal. Food was scarce, disease rampant, violence random and constant. But he got to work almost immediately. He formed a clandestine network within the camp, known as the Union of Military Organization. It included prisoners from various walks of life, soldiers, civilians, priests, doctors. They communicated in whispers, using hidden notes, subtle gestures, and secret meetings after roll call. Pilecki's underground group set up systems to report the reality of life in Auschwitz. They documented the abuse, the starvation, the forced labor, and later, the mass executions. Messages were smuggled out through released prisoners and by bribing guards. By 1941 and 1942, Pilecki's reports were reaching the Polish Resistance Command and the exiled government in London. They included early accounts of mass extermination, the use of gas chambers, and systematic genocide. These were among the first credible intelligence reports on the Holocaust. Still, the reports were met with skepticism. The scale of what was happening was so enormous that many simply couldn't believe it. But Pilecki persisted. Inside the camp, he expanded the underground group and even made plans for a prisoner uprising, hoping that an outside assault could break into the camp and free the inmates. But support never came. The Allies, hesitant to act on intelligence that seemed too horrific to be true, did not launch an attack. The Polish resistance, lacking the manpower and weapons, could not help. After nearly 3 years in Auschwitz, Pilecki realized that if he wanted to survive and continue his mission, he had to escape. In April 1943, he and 2 others managed a daring nighttime escape by overpowering a guard, cutting through wires, and running through the night. They crossed rivers and forests for days before finding shelter. Once safe, Pilecki wrote a full report of his findings, one of the most detailed first-hand accounts of the Nazi extermination machinery, still used by historians today. But Pilecki didn't stop there. Instead of disappearing, he returned to fighting. In 1944, he joined the Warsaw Uprising, where Polish insurgents fought to liberate their capital from German occupation. He fought valiantly, commanding a unit in fierce urban combat. The uprising failed, and the city was reduced to ruins. Pilecki was captured and became a prisoner of war until the end of the war in 1945. When the war ended, most would have expected a hero like Pilecki to be honored. But fate had one final tragedy in store. Poland was liberated by the Soviet Red Army, which quickly established a communist regime. Veterans of the Home Army, those who had fought for Polish independence, were now seen as enemies of the new state. Pilecki returned to Warsaw under a false identity and began collecting intelligence on the new regime, this time hoping to alert the West to Soviet repression. In 1947, he was arrested by the secret police. He was brutally interrogated for months, but never betrayed his comrades. In a show trial in 1948, he was accused of espionage and attempting to overthrow the government. He was sentenced to death. His final words to his wife through a smuggled message were that he had tried to live his life with honor and faith, and that his spirit would remain with his country. He was executed on May 25, 1948, and buried in an unmarked grave. For decades, the communist regime erased his name from the history books. Mentioning him could get someone arrested. It wasn't until the fall of communism in 1989 that his story slowly resurfaced. Today, Witold Pilecki is considered one of Poland's greatest war heroes. He is recognized by Israel's Yad Vashem as one of the righteous among the nations. Memorials and books honor him, and schools bear his name. His story is one of unparalleled bravery, moral clarity, and unwavering resistance to tyranny in all its forms. In a century filled with stories of war, violence, and oppression, Pilecki stands apart, not because of its horror, but because of his humanity. He was not a man drawn to violence or power. He was a father who loved to paint, a husband who cherished his wife, a farmer who valued peace. But when evil rose, he chose to stand against it, not once, but again and again. He entered hell willingly so the world might know the truth. And he died not with bitterness, but with dignity and hope for the future. Pilecki's legacy reminds us that even in the darkest times, individuals can choose courage over fear, duty over comfort, and truth over silence. His story may not be widely known, but once heard, it's never forgotten.